Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Preston. We're doing our Stroke Buddies Stroke Survivor Support Group meeting. We do these every Tuesday at 11 a.m. We sometimes have a little bit of variation on the time or the day to accommodate our guests. And today our guest is Dr. Julie Schwartfeger. And I will try to remember how you guys got in touch with me. But Julie was going to appear earlier in the year and ended up with a conflict. And she was kind enough to write back to me and say, I'd like to get back in the loop. So we did that over the weekend and planned this yesterday. So it's a little bit of an open discussion on mindfulness. And Julie's got more letters after her last name than anybody we've ever had on the program. She's a PT, a neuroPT, a doctor of physical therapy, a few other things. We like science here, so let's welcome Julie, with Dr. Schwartfeger. I'll call you Julie in person, and I believe in calling people by their titles professionally. So today we're going to talk a little bit about mindfulness, and the first thing I'd like to ask you is to tell us a little bit about your history, like you did prior. This is a theme we have going here. It seems like empathetic people have events in their life that turn them towards helping other people, sometimes specifically regarding stroke or neurology. So, Julie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up studying stroke and neurological rehabilitation.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Ralph, and thank you all for being here and inviting me into your group. So yes, as Ralph said, I have a lot of alphabet soup. I have an inquisitive mind. I'm insatiably curious. And early on in my learning, as I was in my undergrad and college at University of Illinois at Chicago, I'm a lifelong Chicagoan, so I'm not afraid of cold weather. My maternal grandmother had a stroke. I just saw my maternal grandmother had a stroke, and she was a very influential person in my life. She's almost like, so many of you may know about this, where you've got a close grandparent who steps in when your parents need to do anything, right? So almost like a third parent, and we even shared the same birthday. So we're just very close. Stroke long term. My family, both immediate and, my aunts and cousins, they're not appreciating the changes or knowing how to deal with them. So they don't even remember those changes when we talk about my grandma and her later years. And then when I was in PT school, a handful of years later, my paternal grandmother had a stroke. And I have people with impairments that, like her son, my dad, doesn't even remember that she had a stroke or the deficits that she continued to have long term, which were very frustrating to her. And she had therapists coming to house. She moved in with my aunt. She no longer was living on her own. So I was very struck by all of these occurrences, and they shaped my trajectory of supposed to study. Somebody wants to weigh in on that, don't they? So those personal experiences, right? I don't know if you guys have heard the term salience, right? But the things that in your brain are really important that they call salience, and salience comes from the word salt. Those very salient experiences early in my life, as I was deciding what I wanted to do work-wise, really shaped and directed my course. So since then, I am very focused on the brain impairments and recovery long-term, that family structure and that social part of recovery, of really thriving again, have a traumatic event like a stroke or a traumatic brain injury. And that's really been my life since then. So I finished my PhD and stepped away from working in a medical clinic back in the early or mid 2000s because I wanted to be part of developing new solutions, because there's so much we just don't do well for people once they've had a stroke or brain injury, or even in preventing that. So that shaped, again, my decisions. So with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about mindfulness, and the way that we originally, me and Mahika Demers, who is out of the University of Southern California lab with Carolee Winstein, who's a wonderful stroke researcher. And now Mahika is just finishing her fellow. That lab is starting her own lab in Toronto, Canada. But I'm connected with them, and we are aligned in doing this mindfulness study that is done using virtual reality. So it lets people participate on their own time using this electronic platform that students actually use a lot now in learning programs. And it's called Langer Mindfulness. And I also have a focus group research study that is a wonders and survivors. Did I freeze? Am I okay?
We actually had her on.
Okay. Yes.
That when you
Yeah,
had
Mahika, exactly. So she was able to bring up that study in the past, and it continues to be recruiting. So right now we're recruiting for people who could start in January, both survivors and caregivers. And I have about 4 slots left for a focus group for people with who are caregivers of persons with stroke, and a couple open spots for people who have had a stroke for the one-time focus group. It's a discussion on Zoom. So that's a little bit about my background. We connected with you guys through the Medical University of South Carolina, which are people that I've been interacting with for my neuromodulation research, which is another area that I focus on. And it's where you have a low current to stimulate cells in the brain. And the focus of that is it I always switch that, hypopolarizes the neurons. So it just makes them more ready to fire, and you pair it with something that is the activity or the behavior that you want to get better at. And it's been shown to improve learning and carryover, which is pretty exciting. So that's how I connected with Medical University of South Carolina. Okay, so enough about me. Unless there's any questions, I'll talk about mindfulness.
2 things. Quick. One is,
Good. Okay.
if you want to fill up those slots, we can certainly fill them up. Either the people that are here. Yeah, see Elizabeth waving, Judy's probably waving, Angela is nodding, so if you want, survivors, we've got, I think everybody here is a survivor. We don't have any caregivers. Trudy's not is a survivor as well. So if you want survivors, we can get you all you need. We probably can fill it up right here after. And if not, I'm always willing to post in the groups, because I'm a big believer I'm a big believer in change. I'm a big believer in science. So I think if we want to see change, we need to participate in it. If we don't feel like our voice is being heard, we need to speak up. I mean, how else is it going to happen? So I'll get off my soapbox and let anybody. If anybody's got any questions or wants to start on mindfulness, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll wind Julie up again and let her go.
Okay, so thank you. And I love that. And I brought a tear to my eye, because that's exactly my trajectory, leaving a nice titled position to go back to be a fellow to start research after 30 years working. I believe in what you just said. I hope I show or embody that, just hearing my story. Okay, so I always like to start with, like, why mindfulness? What is that? And in teaching neuroscience, because I was teaching for about 7 years as I was finishing my PhD, we all started as a zygote. We started as a single cell, right? And a fertilized egg. And from that, a neural tube grew, and all of our nerves have these pathways, these signals that direct them to go out and elongate to what has become our person, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. You know, if you touch any part of, like, touch your toes, your knees, think about how far that got from a single cell. It's quite miraculous. But all of needed is the decider, if you will, of a finger on my arm and say, oh, well, yeah, it's just a touch. That touch can have many different meanings. I can feel it or not feel it, right? Or that means I'll either perceive it or I won't perceive it, based on a number of different factors. And that is that that nervous system identifying whether something is a threat, whether something is important. That's that word salience that I love so much, that saltiness in life, the stuff that's important to us. Those are the things that let your peripheral nervous system gate to say, this should go up and the cortex needs to know. Our cortex is that outer part of our brain, and it's the part that makes us really aware and makes life so rich and meaningful, both for the good and for the bad, right? Both the struggle and the joy. And so with that, mindfulness is connecting and taking control of what we're feeling by choice. And it gives us the power, which we know in this world are many. So that's why mindfulness, that's why I think it's a wonderful tool. And in fact, you can do things starting with mindfulness that will help you slow down your breathing when you're getting upset, right? And if your breathing gets really rapid, you can get lightheaded, or it can start to then also trigger things like your blood pressure to rise. So you can start to lower your blood pressure, lower your breathing, feel more calm. Take a breath to not react in a moment when you might otherwise say, oh gosh, I know I react in that situation. It really starts to give you these powers socially and in your own health that I think are wonderful. So with that, what I wanted to share today is when I joined the VA, the neuromodulation research, what I was really impressed with is that they have a whole health network that they really are trying to synthesize throughout all branches and all areas of their healthcare. And they actually have these freely available handouts that I'd be happy to share with you. But I chose one for today that I thought might be really fun to do, that I'll run by you. And it's a whole health for veterans, progressive muscle relaxation. And I can share this. Let's see. Do I dare try to share my screen? Let me. No, that's okay. But what it is, oh, you're going to let me share? Okay. It's called progressive muscle relaxation and progressive relaxation.
I enabled it.
Oh, thank you, Ralph. Okay. So this is, they have the references and the background and everything. But what I did is I'm on like page 4 of this 5-page handout. And it's just showing that they actually walk you through. Now, I don't expect you guys while we're on the call to lay on the floor. Although if you want to, be fine, or a bed, or couch. But sitting in your chair, it works just the same. And all we're doing is being mindful one part of our body at a time by focusing on that part of the body and doing something very tangible, which is to contract our muscles while we're breathing and then relax those muscles. And by contracting nice and strong and then relaxing, you start to put your awareness in that part of your body. And when you're doing that, it means it's going to take those thoughts that are always running through our minds of all of our worries, that it turns them off so that we concentrate on something much more in our control, which is our own body muscles. So to start with, what I thought we would do is just do some breathing, since breathing is so important. And as you see in the little gray box here, we're supposed to breathe and not hold our breath the whole time we do any of these. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes when I concentrate, I find that I stop breathing or I breathe more shallowly, and that works against these exercises. So, okay, so with your permission, we will start with a breath, and I'll describe it first. This is called bobbleable position. You should feel nice and comfy in your chair. Your feet should be on the floor. Relax your shoulders. In fact, if you have something that smells good near you, put it nearby so it makes you want to breathe in deeply. You breathe in for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold that breath in and feel it. Feel the weight of it and the volume in your lungs where you just breathed into for 5 seconds. And then after those 5 seconds of holding our breath and feeling that chest expansion, we're going to blow like we're blowing out a birthday candle for 8 seconds, or as long as you can. If you run out of breath before that, that's okay. There's no wrong way to do it. We'll just, that's what we're going to try for. So in through our nose for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, smelling that air, and hold it for 5 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5, feeling it in the chest, and blow out those candles. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hopefully that felt good. You guys want to do one more? Okay, so did you guys feel that in your lungs? Did you notice? Were you aware of the expansion of where that air went in your lungs? You may or may not have been. Did you notice maybe that your shoulder might have been tight, or you might have been sitting crooked and you started to want to wiggle? Those are already mindfulness aspects that you may have gotten just by focusing on your breathing, which is pretty cool. So it's very powerful and something very much within your control. Along those lines, I'd like to do it one more time. Again, you breathe in like you're smelling your favorite smell, and if you have that smell, it's even better. For 4 seconds, hold it and feel your body and that chest expansion where you've just opened those lungs up, and lungs like to be opened up, for 5 seconds, and then blow that air out nice and slow for 8 seconds. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, in. Blow, hold it for 5 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5. And then blow out through pursed lips, blow out that candle. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beautiful. Does anyone want to share what that felt like, or if you noticed anything?
I always notice that I feel more relaxed when I do intentional breathing. We actually have a breathing class on Fridays that Angelia runs as part of wellness. So some of us are, half a dozen of us at least, show up mostly every Friday, and we've all found it really useful. The core gang that showed up the first week is still showing up every week. So what does that tell you? Tells me it's useful.
Excellent.
Angelia, you want to talk at all about that?
Sure. I love breath. I think it is a prudent part of the healing journey, no matter what you're healing from. It's just that my particular thing that I'm healing from is a stroke. So, but I love what it has done to open up clarity in my mind and allow for the movement of this energy change that I desperately needed to allow my cells to start healing my body rather than continue in the dysbiosis that it was in. I think it's awesome. And I think it's fantastic that you brought breath to this class or to this group. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, wonderful. And I will tell you, as I do more and more of this, if you go like, oh, if you want to up the challenge, you can do things like think about where in your lungs you're expanding when you breathe, right? So sometimes I'll play around with that and say, oh, I am always hunching because I'm stressed. And so I'll try to step back, or I'll try to think about having my breath go to the back parts of my lungs and feel it expand more, and that I'm leaning to one side. All of things that I'm embarrassed to say I've done way too much of, where I crunch myself up. So the plan now is that you guys, and now knowing that you've got some good skills in your breathing because you do these on Fridays, you're gonna ignore me as much as you need to just do this wonderful breathing, right? The in through the nose, hold it for seconds, blow out. And then I'm going to read these areas, again, being in a comfortable seated position or reclined or lying down, however you're comfortable. And you follow along as much as is comfortable, but only as much as does not disrupt your breathing, right? The feeling good in the breathing is the most important thing. And the focus of this, again, is feeling, and you're going to take control of your thoughts by putting it into different parts of your body, which again is very empowering and very good for health. And I'm going to make this a little bigger so you guys all know what a body shape looks like. Let me see if I can, maybe I can't. Okay, so we're going to start with our hands. And again, as I start doing this, go ahead and do your breathing in through your nose, hold it for a few seconds, and then breathe out a little longer through pursed lip. And I'll read through this and you try to follow along as much as is comfortable and feels good and does not fists both at the same time. And if you need to help one fist be made, you can do them together. You're going to clench them and feel those muscles get nice and tight. And then while you keep breathing, you go ahead and release those and feel both of your hands and those feelings that they're giving your brain. The next is we're going to move up from our hands to our upper arms, our biceps, and you're going to bend your elbows up. Again, if they need help, you can do them together and feel those muscles clenching. You want to feel that right here in the arm. Keep breathing, and then go ahead and fully relax that arm and let it hang down so that you don't feel any clenching of that muscle. Now, taking that and going one step further, we're going to move to the back of our arms. And so for this one, we want to lengthen our arms, and you want to feel that you're doing that using that muscle in the back of your upper arm. And once you feel that tension in that muscle, go ahead and breathe out and relax that muscle and let those arms relax again. As we move to the shoulders, I'm just going to ask you to try to synchronize that you're breathing in and holding the breath when you're tensing the muscle, and then relax when you're breathing out. Okay, so for our shoulders, we're going to shrug those shoulders up close to our ears and breathe in. Hold that breath for the 5 seconds, 2, 3, 4, 5. Relax those shoulders. Let them really relax and hang down while we breathe out through pursed lips. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I tend to wiggle to help myself remember how to relax because I'm not good at that with my upper body. The next one, again, while we breathe in, we're going to move up to our head this time. And I want you to wrinkle your shoulders and make a funny face where you wrinkle your forehead up as much as you can while you're breathing in. Hold that breath while you're wrinkling that forehead, and then blow out that breath and relax your face. I find that I shake my head a little bit again. It helps me relax because I'm not good at that with my upper body and my head. And then next, we're going to do our eyes. So while you're breathing in, you're going to close your eyes and squinch them up tight. Hold that breath while you're squinching your eyes. And now relax your eyes and blow out through pursed lips. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we're going to move to the jaw. I hold a lot of my tension in the jaw, so this one's hard for me, but we're going to breathe in and clench our teeth, which I'm really good at. Hold your breath while you're clenching your jaw for 5 seconds, and then blow out through pursed lips and relax that jaw. I find moving it around helps me relax too. 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to make a big smile, but we're going to breathe in while we're smiling. Hold it for 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. And how's your body feeling through all this? Are you hold it for 5 seconds? Hold it. Are you sitting nice and equal pressure? Are you nice and comfortable? Move if you need to. And then the next thing we're going to do is take our butt muscles. So we're going to move down the bench and we're going to squeeze our butt and breathe in 2, 3, 4. Hold our breath for 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then relax our bottom and breathe out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, through pursed lips. Good. Oh, I have a chat. Okay, that's fine. Take our thighs, the front of our thighs, and squeeze our thighs so they don't want to come up, your heels come up off the floor a little while we breathe in and hold our breath for 5 seconds, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then let our legs fall back down, relax the front of our thighs, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Hopefully this is feeling pretty good so far. And the last one we're going to do is our feet. So we're going to breathe in through our nose while we lift our toes up. And feel the front of our lower leg 5 seconds while we're tensing. 2, 3, 4, 5. And then relax them and breathe out through pursed lips. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then just one last breath because it feels so good and relax our whole body when breathing out. So we're going to breathe in through our nose. In 2, 3, 4. Hold that breath. 2, 3, 4, 5. And then breathe out through pursed lips. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that is our progressive muscle relaxation. And I want to stop there and just not do too much. Now you can choose different muscles. I shared how my tension tends and my stress tends to all sit in my upper back, shoulders, and my jaw. You might have different areas that you notice. And I love that Ralph had shared that feeling more relaxed, and that body awareness as you're doing the breathing can be so helpful. I will share with you that in working full time while finishing my PhD, especially at my advanced years for starting that, there's a lot of tension. And I found that I really started to divorce myself from what my body was feeling, right? So things like you go hours and hours before you go to the bathroom, you find that you're crunching up where you're pressing your arm into your chair arm for hours while you're typing, just like really terrible stuff when I went and looked back at it. And so part of my healing journey from finishing my PhD is to make sure and how I act that out in my body positioning and what I tense up. Like I even talking about being tense, I feel my upper traps tensing up, right? Just the muscle memory of those tensions makes them happen again. But that's okay because my awareness of it lets me address it and I can get better. So with that, I want to, again, just open the floor to ask for anybody's feedback or insight of if there were things that stood out or surprised you in that endeavor. And then I can share a little bit more about the Langer mindfulness that the study that's actually recruiting now that lets you have a series of these that you do on your own. I can share a little bit about that. But first, for you all, any feedback, any insights from doing that together?
I'll see if I can prime the pump. I noticed that when we first started, I was still feeling tension in other parts of my body, but once we got all the way through to the feet and we did that one more breath, I realized I wasn't tensing my shoulders up while I was trying to deal with my eyes or smiling or whatever. That I kind of felt pretty well relaxed all over. But I've also found that taking a breathing class every Friday has really helped me get into that, because in the beginning I found it really hard to do the breathing and have the awareness or focus on a body part, and I would tend to forget about the breathing. And now it's a lot more natural, as is breathing through my core, solar plexus. So that's my experience. You said one thing earlier that played into something this week. You were talking about thriving after stroke. This is a small change of subject, but I was thinking about that too, and that's important. I wrote down, go from stroke survivor to stroke thriver, for what it's worth. So
I like that.
I try and come up with little things that people can remember to well, I suppose it's a part of mindfulness, isn't it? If you have certain things that cue you to think about and do the right thing. I mean, that is, to me, we can get into that as a discussion, but I don't want to derail your what you're doing. So anybody else, please?
What I found was it felt like a balloon. Your balloon fills up, and then when you release it, it felt like everything just let go, just relaxed. That's what I felt, basically.
Oh, I
didn't feel-
love that description.
It's sort of like when you're breathing in, you're blowing the balloon up, and you let it out, it's like, great. Yeah, so that's what I felt, yeah.
I love that. And our lungs are like balloons too, right? It's
Right.
nice to visualize them that way and add to that.
Yeah, that's what I found, yeah. But before, when we had the breathing class, I could never breathe like you said before, breathing 4 times. I could never do that. I only go about 2. But now it's gotten so that I could do 4. But without the breathing class, I couldn't do 4. And so that's, so it does help. And it makes a big difference, because when you release that air, you can actually feel the stress leaving your body. It's like that's what you feel. I'm thinking everybody else must feel
I
that.
love it.
Yeah.
I think it's more like more than like building up breath power or something. I think it's more that you learn how to relax into the whole thing. That's just my opinion. It could be wrong, but that's the way I kind of experienced. I had the same thing. I couldn't do 6. I could
Yeah.
do 3 or 4, because I got pretty good lung power. But I found that I had to, I guess, engage in some mindfulness to think about it and to relax into it and to learn how to do both at the same time. I'll share something with you. I told Angelique, I keep feeling like I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong. I must be doing it wrong. She said, if you feel like you're doing it wrong, you're doing it right.
I
Yeah.
love oh, sorry, Ralph. Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, bad.
I love the narrative of the breath and the fact that it does all these other powerful things. And what we're really trying to teach is the practice of stretching that muscle and the repetition in the practice. And what it is doing for this group has been so phenomenal to watch. Seriously, everybody seems to be getting a powerful difference from it, and they keep returning to it every week. And I love that you brought the breath and the mindfulness into this. it's such a beautiful practice.
Thank you, Angelina. So I
Thank
want to
you.
share. Oh, yeah, I'm delighted. And I benefit from it too. It just helped me relax as well. And hearing from all of you, it enriches my understanding, which I appreciate. So I wanted to share with you, and I wonder if after that you might have experiences similar to share. But I'll give an example of how mindfulness, where the rubber hits the road or on the street, has really helped me socially, and in my professional role, because mostly I've just been working way, way too much for the last decade. When I was teaching, I find teaching pre-licensed PT students and sometimes interprofessional, so podiatry medical students, psychology students, pharmacy students, and PT students were the groups that I would teach neuroscience to. And neuroscience and neurophysiology are subjects, right? So they're not the ones that readily students just love you for, because it's not the stuff that they understand from a role before they're licensed, that, oh, pharmacists do this or PTs do this, like you're moving people's limbs. And then you're like, well, we're going to talk about the sensory physiology of why you feel what you feel and how it can change. Some of them get very angry about that because it's a hard subject. They don't understand how it immediately relates to the profession that they're going into. And they're very stressed because their grades really matter. They're all really type A, right? They all got straight A's to be able to be competitive to get into these programs. And they have lots of tests and lots of information that all these classes are ramming at them in rapid succession all the time. So this is a very stressed group of people. And as Ralph so beautifully put, this group tends to attract empaths. And I will just own that moniker, that applies to me. And I used to say to some of the other faculty, I think I have more mirror neurons than a lot of people, right? And have you guys heard that term, mirror neurons? So when you get to be 5 or 6 years old, these mirror neurons start to play a role in the ability to understand another person's perspective or what they're going through. And that kind of fits with being an empath. So looking out into a sea of 50 to 120, really like, oh my, I can't ignore it. It's such you. And you have to manage it. Don't want to go into the students' breaks. So sorry, look, I'm giving you guys all this stress back talking about the stressful experience. But so let me tell you, so this is where the mindfulness and the breathing came in. What I found is if I could give myself a little cue, and while I'm up at the podium, especially before and after breaks, I would do a mindful breathing 1 to 3 times. And it would just recenter my ability to focus on what mattered. Know that I've practiced this stuff. I know what I want to impart to them. I know there's stress, but it's just part of what is the way that these pre-licensed professional programs run. And I would go in and be able to be focused on the material and really enjoy delivering it instead of being cued tied into with all the stress I was feeling in the room, right? All this external stressors. Instead, I focused on what I love, which is neurophysiology, neuroscience, and sharing that with people who should be able to use it to make people's lives better. But the key piece for me to do a good job and to enjoy it, to do the mindful breaths, which is hard because you have to remove yourself from what you feel are the things pushing you. But for that same reason, it was so incredibly empowering to say, I'm going to ignore all of that. I have to get my center. I'm going to focus on my breathing, right? And so this is that mindfulness of getting myself centered through just letting myself feel my breath and control my breath, which is something I can control. But it makes me also push away all the noise that the world is bringing at me in that moment. And that's exactly why it makes you so much more resilient. And I'm wondering, and you can choose to share, but you don't have to, but I'll open up a space if someone does want to share. If you can just reflect and say, is there a time since you've been taking these wonderful Friday breathing classes where you've been in a position where you felt that stress and it made you want to shut down or react or lash out. And instead, you were able to take that breath and it helped you reset and feel resilient and own that moment instead of being pushed in that moment.
I
Some
think
of
that
us, go ahead.
by your breathing in, I think what you have accomplished is your mindset becomes more focused on what you want to do instead of thinking about other things. Like, oh, I got to go shopping. I have to go do this. I have to go do that. No, my mind says I have to teach this class right now, and this is what I'm going to do. And then you enjoy that. That's your enjoy.
What's going on with the audio today? Everybody's. I'm still moving. Nobody else is. Ah,
But if you're not good at that, Ralph's back. But if you're having trouble doing that on your own or you want reinforcement, I would enlist someone close to you and say, I want you to observe me and you tell me where you think my stress is. And then you have a sounding board. You have someone to bounce it off of.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would think if you don't feel any stress, you must be stress free. Maybe
That's not true.
no, not.
No.
Well, what kind of stress do you think you have?
I think I hold some of the stress up in my,
Over shoulders?
yes, I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
That could be.
You live life, Billy, you've got stress. If you're living your life, you've got some stress.
Oh, yeah. But you have to enjoy life. I mean, everybody has stress. And Julie
Exactly.
has stress because she has to teach. She has to do certain things just to satisfy her job. And she seems like a very stressful lady in her teaching career. Other parts of her life, she's very happy. And a lot of times people can't tell what their stress is. You can't tell me you have stress. But I think maybe if you don't feel it, you're stress free. You know,
I will.
breathe in.
Yes.
That breathing is powerful. So I wanted to go back to something Abraham shared, which I thought was just brilliant. He talked about having that quiet, the value of your life and how lucky you are to be alive. And I thought that was a beautiful segue into the Langer mindfulness, which the study that if you guys are interested is actually exploring, and it takes you on a journey of these very short, very simple, deceptively simple little texts that you read and then you follow what it is. So it can be things like brushing your teeth or sitting in your chair, but it asks you to read this text and it has you focus on the experience, right? And so somebody mentioned earlier how breathing has a physiological, I think it was Angelina, effect. And in fact, our bodies are physical machines and they do function. So like when you take a step, your calf muscle squeezes and it helps your blood go back up to your heart. When you take a deep breath, even people have found looking up and taking a deep breath or this kind of emotion increases endorphins, right? Those are those things that those feel-good drugs that our own body pharmacy releases versus the stress drugs, which make us feel yicky. So taking a deep breath, the expansion of my lungs and on its own helps release those endorphins, those positive feeling drugs that we have in our body that fuel us to be able to be more resilient. So I thought that was a really brilliant thing to say. But so going back to Abraham's statement of having that loss of the ability to speak, have him be able to look at the value of his life and his joy of being alive, feeling grateful for the mindfulness exercises in the that sensory experience of everyday events that you do, but it has have that quiet reflection, that savoring of that physical experience, the smells, the sights, the sounds, the feelings that you're having, and then reflecting it back to your body. How does that feel on your body? They take a few minutes at most, but it gets at exactly that same thread that I thought was so brilliantly stated by Abraham a few minutes ago.
It's called, he took ownership of his health.
And I don't know if somebody has a mindfulness. Yeah.
What was that, Billy?
You took ownership of your health, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, they didn't, no one really thought I was gonna do anything. Everybody's like, well, I don't even know why we're keeping them plugged in. I don't know what we're gonna be saving, you know? So
Unplug,
I had
unplug
to take it and shove it where the sun don't shine, take their opinion. I had to show them what's up, really.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
take the plug, unplug them.
Yeah. They had to amputate from the knee up, you know?
That's good. It's good to be unplugged.
Yeah, I'm kind of thankful they didn't some
It's
days.
good to be unplugged.
Like I said, some days. But, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
Ralph, where'd you go?
I don't know. I mean, it just bombed on me. And then it wouldn't let me back in. I had to reboot my router even.
Wow.
Oh,
And then
wow.
y'all were here. It just like it continued for everybody else but me. I don't
You know what
know.
happens is
yeah.
when you go away, the recording
Yeah.
stops. So it's mainly like the main part goes away, but the whole network can stay up. The call can stay
Right.
up, but as long as the call is initiated, it stays in place. So you don't have to authorize the okay.
Right. Billy's our telephone guy. Anyway,
So,
yeah,
Ralph-
recorded the first part and then I had to hit record again, but I missed like 10 minutes because I tried to sign in 4 times and I finally booted the router and finally let me back in. Anyway,
oh,
maybe it was my internet. I thought it was, I thought, Julie, you were breaking up some on audio, but it could have been my internet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Judy
been-
Johnson, you're shaking your head. So Julie's audio wasn't breaking up for you?
No, Julie's is still breaking up.
oh,
Yeah. You're okay now, Julie, but before it was breaking up. Yeah. So
it was also me.
Yeah, correct.
Technology. So we got multiple issues going on.
So Ralph, just to recap, while we lost the recording and lost your presence for a few minutes, we just started to talk about mindfulness more generally. Abraham shared some brilliant insights from his recovery of being mindful and identifying who he was through that struggle and that loss of being able to talk in his early recovery. And I talked a little bit about linger meditation and that embracing that sensory experience, all the facets of it, as tied with the fact that our bodies are moving in a physiologic system, that by moving, by breathing in and expanding our lungs, we release endorphins. And when we take a step, it gets our blood back up to our heart. And in that way, mindful meditation has us tune into all of the different sensory aspects, like say brushing your teeth, the feeling of the menthol of the mint in the toothpaste, the smell of it, the feeling of it on your tooth or gums, the sound of the water in the room that you're in, just tuning in and fully appreciating all of those sensations. Is very different, but similar to the story that Abraham shared of his early recovery and just embracing the feelings of being alive.
Well, there was that, and also, and I don't want to blame anybody or name any names, but I can't speak for everybody, but I was very young at this point. I was 17. And so I was about to graduate high school. Life was right there. So, and I had to rethink my goals, my dreams. What was I going to do with my life? Well, I wasn't going to be a pilot anymore or helicopter mechanic or whatever, but, so I kind of had to rethink my dreams and goals, and I think that helped me with my mindfulness. I'm still kind of working on like trying to refigure out what my dreams and goals of life are, because my dreams and goals were set on what I thought was the most beautiful thing in life, and that hasn't changed. My mind hasn't changed enough to be like, oh, well, that's not beautiful anymore. I'll just do something else. What am I gonna sell myself short on some?
You have
should
the
I
want.
just be like, well, I could just work. I can hack at a McDonald's, so I guess I'll just put up with working there for the rest of my life. No, I want something amazing for myself because that's what I deserve.
That's called want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
So
You have a lot of want, and that's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
I'll share a little bit about my experience with mindfulness. I don't know that I knew much about it. I don't believe I'd specifically heard that term or tried to define it in my own head. I guess the first time I became aware of it was long, long ago in the hippie days. I had a hippie leather shop and I represented a potter, and I bought a potter's wheel and some things because I thought I would learn how to do it. And I did, and I learned the concept of centering, which is centering the clay, but potters carry that on towards centering your life. It's like centering a piece of clay. I was doing a lot of spiritual reading at the time, and I made all those kind of connections. Fast forward about 30 plus years, and I had a stroke at 58, and I had to, I got into some bad habits, and I called back to my the rehab hospital, and they told me to kind of start over again, walking on my heels and toes, and to do my best pattern, what I ended up calling pattern walking the best possible pattern. And as I was doing that, what I called pattern walking, I realized there are two types of patterning. One was the physical patterning I was doing, trying to get my brain to connect properly with the right muscles and move in a proper gait pattern. And I walked endless amounts of laps in my driveway. And as I did that, I had time to think about a lot of things. And I'm a thinker, I'm an overthinker, for sure. And as I walked and walked, trying to walk that best physical pattern, I realized that there was another type of patterning, and that's brain patterning was what I called it at the time. And that was when I first started taking exception to the word victim. I kept hearing the word victim. People kept using it about me. I didn't see myself as a victim. And as I was doing that walking, I realized, what you put into your head, okay, maybe one part of mindfulness is being mindful about the thoughts you have, what you put into your head, what you believe, the narrative you tell
Closer
yourself.
than I think.
Huh?
Closer than I think, dear God Almighty. Sorry.
Okay. I still didn't hear you. Anyway, so that was my experience. I started realizing that I had some control over the way I thought, and the more positive I thought, the more positive my experience was going to be. It's, maybe it's a shoot off of positive affirmations, but they're also, according to my understanding, they're a part of mindfulness as well. Mindfulness is kind of a big thing, large concept. So,
Well
Julie,
said, Ralph.
well, thanks, Julie. Okay, Julie's back. Look, I don't know what's going on with the internet today, but I guess everybody heard me. Billy's laughing, so he must have heard me.
Yeah.
Winnie's laughing too. I see Judy moving. Sophia's moving. Julie seems to be froze up. Somebody just disappeared.
I hear you.
Do you see me?
I see you. I heard your lovely
Yeah,
story
yeah.
too.
I would assume that's a part of mindfulness. What we feed, be mindful
Absolutely.
of what you feed, be
Over your
mindful of what you put in your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, the power of our own thoughts, and finding ones that you choose to have that make you feel better. And Angelina earlier talked about the physiological effects of breathing. And I think there's a physiological effects also of thoughts we know will make you flush or feel warm, right? So a thought has a power that we can't see, but knowing that this system again started from that zygote and it's all connected, feeding that brain that tells you what it means. There's and make you healthier or less healthy. I think your story, Ralph, gets at that really nicely.
Well, thanks. I just know what I went through, and I had no idea what was mindfulness. I had no idea that doing 10 hours a day like I did was mass practice. I had not heard the word neuroplasticity till I was 10 years post-stroke. Somehow I lucked into mindfulness, mass practice, playing into neuroplasticity. I guess mainly because I'm a curious person like you. I love your quotes you have at the end of your emails, by the way. About the exploration isn't done till we say it's done, basically. Sorry, Aldous Huxley. Anyway, yeah, so I just know what happened to me, and I like I say, I was really lucky to. Well, I'm pretty intense, and I focus on things, so I was pretty much focused on when I was walking, I was focused on the power of my thoughts over what was happening to me. So I also believe that I think it's important that you be a one with yourself, because I think the universe returns to you what the type of energy you put out. And the more you're at one with yourself, the more likely good things are to happen to you. Same with working hard. Thomas Jefferson once said, the harder I work, the luckier I seem to be. And I think that's probably true of mindfulness too. The more centered or more together you can be, I think that affects all of your experiences in interactions in life. Just my personal philosophy.
It's called having goals.
Having what goals?
Goals, future goals you had.
Well,
That's
there's
why you
always
moved
hope for the
on.
future. I mean,
Yes.
I was in therapy. My therapist asked me one day, it was just right after my stroke. She said, Ralph, do you have hope for the future? I said, that's a silly question. I actually think I said stupid, but that's a stupid question. There's always hope for the future. And she said, not everyone feels that way. And I said, well, obviously I do.
That's called
Interesting
mindfulness.
thing. Julie, you were talking earlier about feelings bringing a warmth over you. So I went out on I'm a photographer. I went out on my first photo exhibition or shoot. A friend of mine. It's interesting because you lose some friends, but this was a particular friend who was more of an acquaintance, and she stepped up to the plate. And when I was in the hospital, she sent me flowers and a card and everything. I went, wow. And then she was, as a photographer herself, she called me up and said, have you gone on a photo shoot? And I said, no. She said, you must be going crazy. I said, yeah. And she said, well, your wife let you go? And I said, hey, Dad. And so we went out on this photo shoot, and I took a picture that's the group cover picture in Stroke Buddies. It's a butterfly at the Indian Mound. And when I took that picture and looked at it, I had this feeling, actually, this is fairly rare for me, but actually I had a feeling of contentment and warmth. It was June, so it was warm, but I felt like extra warm, and I felt it like literally sweep over me like a wave. And when I looked at that picture and had that feeling, I said, you're going to be all right, Ralph. You're going to be all right, because I was connecting back to things that were important to me, like being able to take a good picture. And but I definitely experienced that, and I haven't had that warm feelings in the 14 and a half years since. So I made prints, and I made prints of that picture, and I took it back to my therapist. I gave one to my 2 PTs, 2 OTs, my chiropractor, everybody that had an influence on me. I named it "There's Always Hope for the Future," and I signed it like that. Whereas when I sold it, I sold it as Great Spangled Fritillary at the Cowie Mound. And I must have given out more than a dozen pictures of that. And I found that really helped me in a crazy way, sharing that. I don't really know how to explain that, but by sharing that experience with the people that helped me, I felt like it helped me in some way. But I'm a total impact.
It's like it
Something-
pulls out that creative part of you that you lose in a way whenever you become an adult. You know, whenever you have moments like that, Ralph. That story you just told was beautiful. Seriously, those moments are so important to me today through healing from this experience, tapping into those things that I fell in love with as a little girl are some of the biggest parts of the practice that I do every day. You know, that's what helps me kind of guide back to that happiness that's deep within my soul. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And when
That's
I took that
cool.
picture, I didn't know. I got down on the ground and I waited because I couldn't move very fast at that point. I was only six weeks out on getting out of the rehab hospital. So, you know, I wasn't doing all that great. I was doing great for 6 weeks, but I got down on the ground and I didn't know if I'd be able to get up. And, but Linda was with me, and I knew that, you know, she'd give me a hand up if I needed it. But after that, feeling everything was going to be okay, I just stood right up. I didn't think about it, actually. I never realized that. I just stood back up without really thinking about it. Maybe I managed somehow to clear my mind. I don't know. I always feel like I'm not doing it right.
No,
Mindfulness, breathing, meditation. Anyway.
Perhaps you put aside, or you forgot to bring your self-doubt to the process and got out of your own way, and then you just let your body do what the training had already taught it, what to stand
Right.
up, right? But I love Abraham's story, and I love your story. They both are really memorable moments that have great meaning. Sensory aspect, the feeling of warmth. And I think that's a beautiful connection to aspects of mindfulness that are so powerful, that as human beings, that zygote that expanded and became our central nervous system that goes out to our fingertips and every point of our body, in and out, it's multidimensional, and it includes all of those sensory aspects for us to experience the world. And so mindfulness really taps into that, I think. focuses the attention on all aspects of that sensory experience. And in a Proustian sort of a way, not to go old French literature, but it slows down time. It takes time and it lets you hold it and slow down the noise and actually take a moment that you get to hold on to, that you remember really viscerally and in a wonderful way, because you let yourself focus on the sensory aspect of it. It's power. Ralph gets at that moment, like you were right back in it.
It's
Powerful story, Ralph.
It's interesting because as you were talking about time, I realized that I don't know how long that moment lasted. You know, it's funny how your brain can recall something 14 and a half years later, but I'm just sitting here realizing when I had that whole feeling experience, I had no real sense of time.
It's called God. That's what it's called.
You just
God.
might be right there, Billy.
Yeah,
Hey, you.
he's got his eye on you.
You got the no, you got the power to get better. It's within you. That's one of the things we preach is that, you know, the cavalry's not coming. No one's going to save you. The power to heal yourself is within you. And the people that look elsewhere,
It's faith, Ralph.
people that look elsewhere, you know, for something else end up, in my opinion, delaying their recovery. If you find anybody questioning themselves or having a pity party, they're still thinking that something's going to come along and change it. Just like the stroke came along and changed their life, something's going to come along and reset their life. And that's not how it happens in my experience. My experience, the power is within you. And as long as you look elsewhere, you're likely to be disappointed and not make a lot of progress. So, but I'm trying not to get up on my soapbox in this conversation, but I find that difficult, as all of you know.
You know, like, wait, back to Judy's comment on her shoulders. My tension is all in my shoulders and goes up to my neck, which gives me a headache. And so I found out that if I write things down and clear my mind, that helps me, and I knock it off one at a time. Is that a good idea?
Oh, that's brilliant. So
Mm-mm,
not
not good.
only have you identified where you hold your stress, which tells you I'm learning. I feel my muscles are like a rock. Then I can do breathing, but you've all tied it to something that relieves your stress, in addition to the fact that you can tense your muscles and relax them, you can do your breathing, but you know that it's the thoughts that are at the heart of it. And by writing the worry that you'll forget something, it's taking away the main source of the tension. And then you can still do the breathing and the muscles tensing and just being aware of relaxing, but you've gotten rid of the worry about getting something, and that is a beautiful example of really empowering yourself and decreasing your stress, because like that should decrease.
Got it. Okay.
So that's a yes with an exclamation point after it. And, you know, I guess, I don't know, what is the definition of mindfulness? God, that's a tough one. I didn't look it up in the dictionary. To me, it's anything that you can do within your mind to help you and to help you steer in the direction that you'd like to see yourself go.
I've also heard people equate it with that being fully present. I think it was somebody mentioned earlier that, you know, if you're breathing and you're really focused on your breathing, you can't be worried about needing to go shopping or what you're going to make for dinner. And so if you indeed are thinking about what you're going to make for dinner, then you're not truly taking in the sensory experience of that moment. And so being mindful would be pushing away those thoughts and letting yourself fully appreciate the full sensory experience of like this interaction, right? And all of our technical issues included, which makes it an enriched experience. But truly just focusing on this wonderful company that I have in this meeting, the chat and the visual, the nice, being able to see all your faces and relate to you guys all, and not think about anything else is that's being mindful, right? And it's always a struggle because there's always those competing thoughts and noises. Right now I have people outside making noise, cutting down a tree, you know, so like that's filtering in and taking away from the mindfulness of the moments, although it is part of my sensory full moment experience, some of which I need to mask you guys from so you don't hear chainsaws in the background.
It's funny you mentioned cooking. I call it kitchen yoga and yard yoga. I mean, to me, yoga is anything that you can do to be mindful, to get yourself outside of yourself. And I experience a lot in the kitchen. I mean, I don't space out because I'm sometimes, you know, baking and measuring things and everything, but the kitchen and yard work are two places where I really can put everything aside and just focus on being there. And if you're an overthinker, those kind of times are hard to come by and really enjoyable because I'm not running this whole narrative in my brain over and over and over and over and over again like I normally am. So if you're an overthinker, try and figure out what kind of yogas or mindfulness work for you. More just my
Having
thoughts.
one thought at a time, then.
Having what?
Having one thought at a time.
Yeah. Well, I find I can do that when I cook or when I'm doing yard work. I can't talk on the phone. If I talk on the phone while I'm cooking, it takes me about 3 hours to make something that should take 1 hour. Of course, I don't stay on the phone that long, but not a multitasker. Maybe that's a good thing for mindfulness. There's a discussion. Does multitasking work against mindfulness? I'd have to say yes. Okay, this is crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know how I have a meeting like
I
this.
agree.
Maybe we should wrap this
I
up since we got such technological issues. It's also, we've been at it for a while. And Julie looks like she's frozen again.
Did I really freeze?
Yeah.
To me,
I hear
you did.
you.
I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. Did she freeze for you for 30 seconds?
Yeah. It's her internet and your internet, basically. The other ones are working pretty good. I think.
Do you think it's my internet or hers or both?
No, both of your internets.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because the Zoom's working fine. And everybody else's internet seems to be working okay.
How soon can you get to Chicago and South Carolina to do a quick repair?
Do a reboot.
We'll be waiting a while, huh?
I gotta stop at Panera.
Oh, you gotta stop at a few Paneras for that trip. Bill eats a lot of his meals at Panera. And by the way, Billy, I'm having avocado toast today, which Billy doesn't like. So we joke about some of this stuff because a lot of us have learned that, you know, you can laugh or you can cry, and it's better to laugh.
Yeah.
So anybody got anything else? I'm gonna have to figure out how the heck do I edit this thing together? Missing 10 minutes in the middle with a recap 5 minutes after we restarted. Not blaming you at all, Julie. That was great that you did the recap. I'm just, as a video editor, I'm going, oh my God. What am I gonna do? I'll figure it out.
That'll keep you busy.
It'll keep me busy, yeah. I kind of like the ones where you find the beginning and the end, do the graphics and plug them in and just wait on the computer. The computer takes a long time to generate all the various versions, but this one I think is going to take some of my time, but that's okay.
So, Julie, so what do you do? You teach now? Are you teaching now, or what do you do?
Okay.
Well, she froze again.
Yeah, she did freeze.
So that's a very fair question. So I still teach. Again, does that help? I think that helps. Can you hear me?
Right.
I hear you.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So I am, I teach but in an adjunct capacity. So I don't have all the meetings and the big demands. And
Okay.
I'm finishing some research. I'm finishing some research that's being published on self-management after stroke, and also developing and getting some funding for research using neuromodulation for balance and attention after brain injury. So most of my time is spent doing research, but I do a little bit of teaching, the sensory physiology and neuroscience rehabilitation focus. I teach in the medical school, right?
When do you sleep? 1 hour?
So that's where I found I had really divorced my feelings of what my body needed and how I was feeling to finish my PhD and being a full-time assistant professor. It was too much, and I wasn't sleeping. I was stealing from my sleep, and I was stealing from my life in a lot of important ways. But thank goodness that was self-limited, and that's why I stepped away from full-time teaching. So now they only ask me to teach some very specific courses that I love. It's subjects that I love. And otherwise, all my time is doing things like talking to you all about topics that I care about. So research using mindfulness, both developing it and collaborating with other people that are brilliant and want to make better treatments for people who've had a stroke to live, to thrive instead of just survive, right? That's really where my time is. And I am getting full nights of sleep. I am making sure of it now. And I'm using these mindful techniques also to make sure that I start to have good enjoyment in life, not just work.
Yeah, I think that worked because I think the video was taking some of the bandwidth. So,
Yeah, that because you were clear as a bell all through that.
yeah.
And Sophia's using mindfulness and breathing too right before she goes to sleep. So I mean, it's definitely, and she's, I was gonna say testified, well, that's too formal. She's shared with us before that that's working for her. And
Abraham does it too, I think.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And anytime you need somebody to talk to and you want to talk about like balance after stroke or whatever, we could conjure up a pretty big audience for that. It's a big issue. Mike was here earlier, Mike Tapley,
Yeah.
I believe is his last name. And he's got balance issues. Of course, most anybody who had a brainstem, pons, cerebellum, stroke, thalamus, stroke has more balance issues than others. So if you want to keep talking, we'll keep listening.
Oh, I love it. So Ralph, on that point of balance, I know this is a bit of another topic, maybe for another
Right.
time to do explore more. But one aspect of balance that I'm very fascinated by, that adults with acquired brain injury, I find that attentional and those frontal lobe aspects that are often also involved after stroke and brain injury When it's again, the rubber hits the road, the using balance in your life, walking around while you're doing things and talking to people, I think that those attentional components and that salience network can be involved and affect balance. So it's tying that together, the attention and working memory with the balance, being steady while you're doing the stuff you need to do that's important in your life.
That's interesting. I've been threatening for a few months. Michelle Jensen, who runs Stroke Sweat Squad, is not here today, likes this idea. I've been thinking about making a series of videos. They might be all in one, or a series of short ones combined together on I call it physics of stroke. Okay, I find that you're much more likely to trip or have balance issues when you start doing multiple things at the same time. So this post would be things like, well, about 5 things that you should never do, like, because they involve blocking your vision. Like I sit down, I have really good balance for a stroke survivor. I had really good balance pre-stroke, but that's another story. And that ship sailed 14 and a half years ago. Anyway, things like I still sit down to do things like put a shirt over my head. I won't stand up to do it. Can I stand up to do it? Absolutely. Will I fall down? Probably not. But one of the things that I try and do in my life is model the behavior that other people should, I feel like other people should model. That way I'm living it, and I feel more qualified to share, how my experiences work for me. Recently, what was I doing? I had a flashlight or something in my hand. I went to turn on the flashlight or check it or something, and I tripped over the rug.
I know.
What do you do if you come up on a totally wet floor? You better be able to be mindful. I did a post on that when I went out to visit. Well, Stormy's gone. When I went out to visit Stormy and Brooke, I went to get them a dowel to work with at Home Depot. I had to use the restroom. I go to the restroom, the entire floor looks like a Zamboni just went over. It's soaking wet. And what do? You focus and you walk like a 90-year-old man. Short steps, wider stance. Think about it. So there's a lot of things you can do with your brain and with physics to not get into trouble. I should make more posts like that. Same way I should make more videos about how to get in and out of a car. I made one on how to pull your pants up at the toilet. That was a lot of fun.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had fun with it on purpose. Well, I wore a pair of shorts underneath my pants for modesty reasons, and I said some stuff like, no, I'm not going to get naked for you to show you how to pull your pants up. Like that. I think if you interject humor into things, that people remember it more.
Yes, I agree.
I got a quick question.
Sure.
You were speaking about balance. You know what I find to be the biggest issue? My balance has been returning, and that symmetry within it. I find it coming back. But I'm going to tell you, when I close my eyes, and even with my eyes wide open, if I'm not aware, like physically, visually aware of where things are on my affected side, I lose space and time very quickly. And if my eyes are closed, I lose space and time completely. It's like I get the upside downs or something,
I have the same issue. Like sometimes my office used to be out in the back of the garage, and if I worked past dark and I would walk back to the house through pitch black dark, I was real uncomfortable. I got one little hint for you, Angelia. One thing to do is look around and find all the doorways and ceilings, all the things that are vertical and horizontal are big visual keys for me. I mean, I don't have trouble with this, but I find when I can't see what's vertical or horizontal, that like in a pitch black dark, I have a lot more fear about my balance anyway. I haven't fallen now in, oh, I shouldn't say this, 'cause now I know I won't fall. I haven't fallen in about 7 years. I've only fallen 3 times in almost 15.
Thank you.
So, uh,
So Ralph, can I add something to that? I think
Sure.
those are,
you're
I
the
think
doctor, I'm not.
well, but you've used these strategies, and I think you suggested a really good, so again, you're both talking about when you close your eyes or when it's dark. And so vision is a really big component of balance, but it's one of 3. So we always talk about balance. You guys have probably heard this, a three-legged stool. Visual is one, and when the other systems get dampened or damaged, like may have happened in the stroke or after or during recovery, your proprioceptive sense, that's your brain knowing when exactly the tension on every muscle and every joint and every tendon to know where your body is in space. And then the sensory feedback, which if you have a hemispheric, one side of your body where your sensation and your use of that side has changed, then the sensory input, both from the periphery as well as from the muscles and joints, is dampened. However, it doesn't mean that those things can't be improved by training. But to Ralph's brilliant point, I think you said a little bit ago, Ralph, that can you put your shirt on with while you're standing? Sure, and you're not going to fall. But why do it when it opens up that risk? Because avoiding a fall when it's not necessary is just really smart. I call that adulting at its best. And I always tell people, like, don't be a hero in the bathroom is like what I like to say, right? Don't take any chances, take extra time, put in grab bars and stuff. It doesn't have to be the sexy room of the house, but you'll be safe and you can be comfortable doing those things that you have to do when there's water and hard surfaces and things around where you can really get injured if you do fall. And it might be that you'll never fall, even though, your balance is a little bit different from your stroke. However, what about if you get a cold, or you're just feeling run down or you're extra tired? Whatever it is that's going to tip the scales, like why put yourself at that risk? Outside of those environments, there's ways you can do exercises that will hone your proprioception and your sensory systems, the same way we did with the breathing exercises, right? You guys shared those wonderful stories of how at first you couldn't do the full breathing out and you notice that the time is lengthened. You work that muscle and it gets stronger. And those systems probably have more capacity that can be built back, that will translate to having your balance feel improved. Which is a fun thing to think about. Like, oh, do I have time for that in my life? Is it important enough to me? Then there's things you can do to hone those skills.
Yeah, I have, I think most people here have an understanding of proprioception. I preach it because it's real important. I've got one video, I can think of a couple, one video on foot placement where basically I use a walker to simulate parallel bars, because who's got $3,000 parallel bars in their house? And you can sandbag it. And I use a 4x4 to simulate the $150 maple block they have at physical therapy, scrap. I make a real point of this, like it's actually a scrap piece of 4x4 from a post. And you could also use tape. So I try and show people that tape will work just as well. What you're interested in doing is you repeatedly touch the board or the tape. And then when you get good at it, you learn how to do it without looking. You close your eyes, and I demonstrate that in that video. I also demonstrate brain patterning. So I try it without holding on. I don't do very well. Then I light touch it with 2 fingers, and I do like 4 perfect ones. And then I let go, and I do 4 more perfect ones. I think I say 5, and I only do 4. But anyway, you can actually visually see what I call brain patterning working. Another real simple one for your arm or hand is get a single sticky note, okay? Stick it anywhere. Now touch it with your affected pointer finger or any finger multiple times until you feel like you know where it is. Now close your eyes and do it and touch the same thing. Then move it down low, move it over here to the left, move it to the right, up and down. And that's real simple. It involves a 1 cent Post-it note and a little bit of common, I like to build things around things that we have. Everybody's got, chip clips and hammer in the drawer and a thing of Post-it notes. So I like to make things that involve common household objects, because I don't believe you need, I'm not anti-device, but I don't think you need all the expensive stuff to get better if you work at it, and you work at it from a neurological, if you play into neuroplasticity, the way the brain learns.
Yeah, agree.
Functional therapy. Isn't that functional therapy?
Yeah, functional therapy, or what we sometimes say, therapy is all around you. We also, Julie, we also preach to people, get in the kitchen, wash the dishes as soon as you're not going to break them. I actually got in there when I was going to break them. I got out the plastic picnic set and I just washed them. They didn't need washing.
Brilliant. Now, Ralph, you said something that made me think of Angelia's question, and I just wanted to walk the what you said over to something I think she might want to try that might be worthwhile. And you talked about that light touch, right? The just putting a fingertip to touch the bar to improve your balance. And that light touch, there's an engineering term for this, but it's that you just need a little bit stronger signal, right? And sometimes that sensory signal getting up to the brain, the capacity is just dampened. So it's still there, but by taking your other hand and touching the other arm, so just with your other hand, but touching that body part might be really powerful and increasing your capacity to keep that balance. And so instead of touching an external object like bar, to get your place in space, it might be touching even the other arm, but it also could be touching the wall. But touching the side that has the diminished sensory information going up to the brain might be the little thing that has your body your central nervous system tune more into that, where it now has what it needs. So it's not that your hand has to stay there a long time, but just for your brain to say like, oh, this is important. She's touching this in relation to thinking about balance, which, we've got all these different parts of the brain focused on this now. And now we know, hey, this arm that we tend to ignore because the signal's a little quieter, we need to ramp up our focus on this and tune it in and get that signal. It's powerful stuff. And I love that you're talking about not buying expensive equipment or needing to go to a specific external place that's just for therapy or rehab or medical stuff. Because that doesn't translate to your life. The doing it in your room where you live and where it makes sense and your life happens. And it doesn't cost a cent, right? Which is lovely.
What an interesting lens to look through as you were talking about that. I was just thinking just about how the meditation and the breath, just to kind of connect it all, it really pulls you into this space of whole body. And when I'm awake and my eyes, my senses are being stimulated in other ways, that neurological not lapse, but almost like delay is still very present. But when I'm in a deep meditation or breath session, I lose all sense of that completely. And I never really thought to, it's really important to me that body sensation. I never really thought to really kind of move my hands around my body to feel that side that I don't feel so presently, and immediately with my opposite side to make that connection within. That's fascinating. I'm definitely going to try that. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So I want to give you just because our brain works in contrast, right? Our brain likes patterns and our brain notices a disruption of patterns. And mindfulness, we've been talking about focusing on all of the sensory experience, where then it tunes out. It automatically doesn't leave room for all the noise that we're constantly bombarded with that kind of steals our moments from us. So I want to give you the antithesis of mindfulness. And I'm just going to talk about the fact that I drive the same path to go to work every day. And I use this with the students when I teach sensory physiology. And it goes to the fact that your brain doesn't, the cortical part of your brain where you actually are aware of what's going on in your body and in space around you, doesn't automatically happen. It's expensive real estate. It takes 20% of our body's energy supply, and it runs out of gas. I call it the Edsel of our nervous system, right? It's a clunker. It's incredibly important. It's brilliant. It's unique to humans. However, it can only run for a little bit of time, and then it needs a break, or it's going to fail on us, right? It's going to stall out. So when I drive, and you may do this too, someplace you drive all the time. Have you ever arrived at that place you drive to in the same path every day and gotten out of your car and said, I don't remember driving here? That's the opposite of mindfulness. And that's where the patterns that you need to go through and the movements and the thoughts to make decisions are so not important, because your body knows them, and your central nervous system knows that they're not a threat and there's nothing novel, that it decides that it does not need to activate your, what they call the reticular activating system, to open the gate where those sensory perceptions get up to your cortex, where you actually are aware of them, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the actions, the visual experience, which is kind of powerful. And so your brain never registers them, and those moments are lost to you. And what's fascinating is, to me, is to then think about, well, what was so important that I did tune into while I did this? It's like a 45-minute to an hour drive for me. Like, that's an hour of my life twice a day. That if I don't remember it, I'm losing a lot of my time, right? Again, I'm getting a little bit Proustian. But when you think about what you are thinking about, you're mostly worrying about the stuff that it's not really enhancing my day. So I think about, okay, do I really need to pay attention to traffic? Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes it's beautiful. The sun is rising, or the sun is setting, or the trees are really beautiful because they're changing for the autumnal tones. So that's a wonderful way to enhance that drive and get that moment back instead of losing it from my life. But alternately, I could be thinking about something I want to write, or somebody that I really enjoy their company and I'm thankful for in my life, right? So there's other things that you could choose those thoughts, as I think, Ralph, you were talking about earlier, that I want to have while I do that daily commute of 2 hours a day that really doesn't even register in my cortex, and doesn't become a memory for me. It's just stolen time from the meaningful part of my life. So that's kind of taking a mindless activity, which is that common drive where you don't even perceive it, and you don't remember doing it after it's done. That's how much you don't perceive it, and choosing to fill it with mindful thoughts of your own choosing. Or maybe it's to do the breathing exercises while I do it, and I'm tuning into how I feel while I'm breathing, if I can do that safely, right?
I think that's memory. Part of your brain is memory. Your brain has the memory in there, and then that's basically what that is. You do something every day. You do something the same thing. Your brain learns the memory of that, and just does it automatically, so you don't realize. Oh, I went over here, but how did I get here? Oh, wow. I think that's what it is, memory.
I have some of my best thinking. I a lot of times when I'm driving long distance, I'll turn off the radio or CD and just think about things. I do some of my best thinking that way. Of course, when I drove to Tulsa in May, there was something that said, had a full tank of gas and said something like, Fort Smith, Arkansas, 208 miles or something like that. And I'm driving along and saying, no, Fort Smith, Arkansas, this exit. So I drove like 2 or 3 hours without
Oh,
that. Couple things I was going to say, but I wanted to let other people talk was, I'm not sure I understand the touching same side thing, but I will be fooling around with it. People in this group will attest to the fact that as soon as this is over, I'll eat my avocado toast and I'll be fooling around with that. And the other thing is, this would be a whole nother series of discussions. And that is when you talk about the light touch thing, I've walked at least a half a dozen people on gait belts. I actually play physical therapist based on what I've learned. No, I probably shouldn't be doing it, but these people don't have anybody, they're out of insurance, whatever. And I do it safely, and I haven't done it in a year or two. And the older I get, I don't know at what point I'll be forced to give it up myself because I'm worried about other people's safety. But so I'm walking people and they're doing okay, but they're still struggling on the gait belt. We're trying to drop the cane or drop the walker or whatever. And so I'm walking them with nothing on a gait belt. They're doing okay. Then I have them walk next to me. I leave the gait belt on in case I have to grab it. And depending on their affected side, it depends on which side I have them on, which means I got one stronger and one not so fast hand, although it works pretty fast. And I find that if I just have them touch my shoulder, they can walk better than when I have them on the gait belt. And I think it has to do with fear. I've been trying to study fear. And so the conversation I'm thinking about is, what role does fear play in the whole thing, in mindfulness, if you will? Because it's a huge, you're nodding your head, and you're well versed in this, having seen some strokes in your family and such, and having studied it forever. But most people don't realize, stroke survivors do, but most outside people don't realize how big a role fear plays in all of our lives. It's huge. If you can overcome the fear, you can often do something. I know you want to talk, Julie. I'll let you in just a second. You said something about being able to forget about it for a few seconds. One thing I found, there's a little wall here. I used to go butterflying next door to an empty lot that now they mow, and so there are no butterflies. But I either had to walk down through the riprap and up, or go across the little cement wall. I wasn't real comfortable with the cement wall. And the slower I did it, and the more I would teeter-totter and be fearful and everything. One day I said, what happens if I just scoot across it? I just scooted across it. I did it perfectly. I scooted across it from then on. So sometimes you got to be careful, because I was at a level where I knew that if I just told my brain to do it, that I wouldn't fall. And it was also 18-inch drop. But it was into riprap, big riprap. So that wouldn't be a lot of fun. Just like the bathroom is full of really hard things. That's why you don't want to fall in the bathroom.
Right.
So fear plays a tremendous role in holding us back in our recovery. And I guess in my mind, I think I'm working on learning more and more about how it works, so that I'd love to somehow have some kind of thought or breakthrough that would help other people overcome their fear and take that out of the equation. Maybe not all the time, but sometimes when you were mindful about it, maybe. So
Yeah, I love that, Ralph. And I just want to reflect back on your story of early in your recovery, when you were needing to you were going through all the training to get your ability to stand up and walk again. And you kept having struggles with it, even though you were working on it. And you told you gave the example of, I can't remember if it was that you did a mindful breath, or that you were just so focused on what it was you wanted to do that you didn't think about it. And then you just got up and walked, and it wasn't even an issue. And I think that's a great illustration of fear getting in the way of you doing something that you have the capacity to do, but the fear And I like to blame central nervous structures. So I blame the amygdala. And my favorite story that this kind of ties to is in amygdala or fear learning, which is different than other things that you learn. The amygdala is almost like the bad kid in the classroom, right? So in this case, and so if think about going to someone's house who you love and you think very highly of, they invite you over and they give you a glass of red wine or red juice, and you're supposed to be socializing and balancing this in your hand while you're talking and walking. And if you start to really focus on being, and they have white carpet, by the way. So if you think about the fact that you care deeply about these people, you want to be invited back, you want to respect them and their home, and be thankful for them inviting you over. And now they've given you this thing that is making you not be present for the party because you're so worried about juggling this purple liquid and not wanting it to get on their carpet, right? If you really start to focus on that, the likelihood of you spilling it on their carpet goes up in proportion to how much you worry about it. You're almost guaranteeing you're going to throw that punch or wine on their carpet. And if you can take a breath and think about the fact that you're balanced and let yourself tune back into what's going on at the party, you're proportionally less likely to actually spill the purple liquid on their carpet, which is not intuitive, right? It just doesn't make sense, but it is something that is true. And so the worrying about not being able to stand up, by having that be at the forefront of your mind, the signals you're sending out to your body systems actually make it less likely that you'll be able to stand up. And if you can get out of your own way, I like to say, or turn off that amygdala thinking and think about what it is you actually care about, like wanting to get up to go answer the door or whatever it is that's meaningful, you're more likely to just get up and stand up without an issue, which again is not intuitive, but it's very powerful. And Ralph, you've lived it and you shared a story.
Well, I don't know if she was finished. Okay. Yeah. So actually I've got it's the letting go that's the hard part, like in everything, like how do you let go, especially if like you're I see Judy nodding her head. I believe Judy I'm not trying to accuse her of anything, but I believe from knowing her and talking to her that she's an overthinker like I am. And the more you're an overthinker, the harder it is to let go of that. But yet it's what's holding you back. I have an even better example, and that is about in my 15 years, maybe hadn't happened in about 2 or 3, so it wasn't like once a year or anything. I've had 10 times, 15 times where I've been walking along and I suddenly realized that I'm walking perfectly. No hip dip, no nothing. I'm walking perfectly. And as soon as I have that thought, what do you think happens? I go back to not walking perfectly, because it's like we're imposing this model on ourselves. And that if we could just somehow let go of it and let go of the fear that, I think it'd be a game changer. I don't think it would, completely let go of everything, but it would put you in a space, a zone, I call them, like in the gate belt situation. What I've tried to do is, the only way I've found that people will let go of the cane is when they've been in a safe zone enough that they feel like that they could live there instead of having to live with the cane. And so it takes a lot of time. That's one of the reasons I sandbagged a walker, so I could take it to a guy who was, getting close to that time, and he could walk with the walker in addition to walking with me. I went there twice a week for an hour, but he could only walk about 15 or 20 minutes before he did something that I call run out of brain. And that's, you're talking about this cortex needing a break. I don't know if it's a cortex. I'm not a neuroscientist. You are. So it seems to me like when you complicate things, like I intentionally sometimes walk with 2 full glasses of water. And I find that I'm either going to shake and spill one on my affected side if I walk perfectly, and if I hold the glass perfectly, my walking suffers. I actually had neuroPT have me do John Wayne walking with math and state capitals I said, so we're like trying to build up like brain capacity? Because I find, I do something like, I got a garden and I don't go high on ladders. I was told not to go on ladders. I know how to do it safely. But if I go up on a ladder with a level, a stake, a sledgehammer, and I'm like putting the stake in the ground and I'm holding the level with my affected hand and I'm leaning out and I'm trying to pound the stake with a sledgehammer and not hit my hand, I do that for about 15 seconds and I'm like right back down the ladder and I go and right back up the ladder. I can just shake it off just like that. But I get this woozy, crazy feeling, like I call it running out of brain. There is actually a medical term for it. I heard it once and failed to write it down. And but there is some kind of a term for that. So that's interesting. If we could just somehow get rid of that overlay of that we can't do it, or the fear, or it's all the same. But it's like learning how to breathe or learning how to meditate or anything. Like you got to learn how to let go. That's not so simple. I haven't been real successful at it.
I'd like to tell everybody a recent experience that I had. I've been working on the stairway to our basement. My husband and I go up and down them about 6 times a day, and I'm trying to do it step overs. So I've
You
mapped
mean like
foot
go
over
2
foot.
steps at a time, not play
Yeah.
catch up.
Correct.
Okay.
So I've been successful going up the steps, but it's been much more difficult going down because I look at that staircase, right? And it's steep. So I've been doing about 4 or 6 steps at a time going down at the bottom. And the other day we went to go down the steps and my brain recalled and automatically my foot started going over. Automatically. I mean, I didn't even think about it. My husband had a hold of my waist on my pants and my brain just took over. And my brain said, you know how to do this. And I did it all the way down the steps. Well, in shock.
And then you can't
But the
reach it.
lesson, but the lesson was the brain is so powerful that sometimes it can just take over.
Yeah, that's called memory. You build memory in your brain, basically.
Yes,
Then
yes.
They
you can
call
do
it
that.
muscle memory, but I think it's brain memory. I think muscle
Yeah,
memory is a
brain
wrong
memory.
term.
It's brain
brain
memory,
memory.
Kelly. You're right. My
Well,
brain said, you know how to do this. And the
That's-
fear went away.
That's what's happening when I'm walking, and all of a sudden I realize I'm taking 20 or 30 steps perfectly, and then it all falls apart. You can also reconnect with big chunks of stuff. I was shooting a video on dealing cards, because cards are shuffling cards and dealing cards and such is good hand therapy. Now, I didn't do it in my recovery, but I knew about it. So just like I didn't do, I use a little teeny pegboard, not the bigger one, but I make videos sometimes on things I didn't do. So I'm making this video on dealing cards again, and I talk about doing it bilaterally. You should deal with both hands, you should shuffle, and I show both kinds of chump, shuffle, and shuffle. And so I go to deal with my right hand. At first I left affected, I dealt that way, real awkward. I go to deal right-handed, and all of a sudden, my left hand starts pushing the cards off like nothing ever happened, like I never had a stroke. I reconnected with a whole big chunk of something, and I can still do it. I don't have a deck of cards here, but I actually, in the outtakes, I didn't put it in the video, but I actually am talking to my cameraman. I say, I can't believe what just happened. I just reconnected with a big chunk of something. And, you know, how do you harness those kinds of things? You know, that's what inquiring minds want to know. So it's just a fascinating and endless subject, as you know, Julie, because you've been studying forever. And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah. Called repattering, I think. You keep on doing the same thing over and over, your brain learns that pattern. And
Right.
you can do it, yeah.
Right.
That's
Well, this was
awesome.
unusual because my brain already knew that. I had not dealt cards since my stroke. It was 2 years ago. So I was 12 and a half
built-in.
and 13 years out. And all of a sudden I just bingo. I mean,
Pull
like
it back
I
up,
had
yeah.
I don't know how to describe the feeling. It wasn't like any kind of warmth or anything, but I definitely, it was like a click. Something clicked and I knew it clicked. I had this feeling like, and I went, wow. And of course, my very next thought was, okay, if I did it with this, how do you do it with other big chunks? You know, because I'm always trying to figure this stuff out.
Ralph, it feels like a aha moment.
Yeah, it was an aha moment.
Aha moment. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So, gosh, we just keep talking. So maybe we should wrap this up, Julie. I don't know what all you got to do, but you've been very generous with your time.
Oh, this has been so much fun. And I know not everybody got to speak, but just the presence of everybody, seeing everybody enjoying this and some of the stories and examples and insights you guys have all shared. I'm very grateful to be here, and I have had a delightful time. And I thank you for inviting me. I just want to end with again a thanks, and then also to let you know that you've all given or many of you have given examples of mindfulness, and we've talked about mindlessness, and the fact that neuroplasticity and ongoing recovery is very real. And I'll just reference Abraham talking about people wondering why they were even keeping him on machines, not believing he could recover, to go along with if ever somebody says something that doesn't compute to you or limits what you're capable of, and you choose to ignore it, you have my full support, and I think that's exactly the right thing to do. And then to reference what you said, Ralph, it's got to come from you. You have to tap into the power and that neuroplasticity that we're all imbued with. It's all in us, and whatever damage, whatever insults to our neurologic system, our aging process, that all is something that happens to everybody. But that ability to tap into recovery and resilience is something that makes me fascinated about these discussions, that sense of community and learning through community, as well as the mindfulness that I'm so grateful to be learning more about through these studies and through talking with groups like the folk you folks here and our discussion today. So thank you.
Well, we thank you for your time. And, you know, one thing with that, one of the things that I hear from non-stroke survivors, clinicians, research people is always that they find it fascinating to hear our side of things, like, you know, the real world stories, because they don't always get exposed to that. You know, even if you're a PT, somebody comes in, you do your 45 minutes, you're trying to give them as much, you know, piano lesson time. I refer to it like a piano teacher. You don't get better there, you practice at home. And so even PTs have said, you know, I don't get this kind of feedback that I get. And of course, anybody studying stroke or trying to do something about preventing strokes, like we've got some partners that do, they find it our input valuable. So, you know, that's one reason I don't have any problem inviting somebody like you to give up your time, because I think basically I've heard feedback numbers of times that people who haven't had a stroke who are studying it find what we have to say the real world stuff that we've lived through, really valuable and something they don't get exposed to all the time. So with that, we'll end it, and you can let me know what you want to do in terms of getting people in your studies, and you know, we can sign up. Few people are still left here that would sign up. You tell me what you want to do, and I'll make some suggestions and reach out to some people or put a post in the group. So
Yeah, and I put yes, thank you. And I put my email in the chat, and Ralph, you have it to share, as well as those flyers. So please do share those with the group, and people can reach out to me directly, or if you guys prefer to do stuff collectively, there's no wrong way for you to approach me. I'm really happy to talk to anyone interested. Thank
okay.
you again.
I'll look back to the emails. I'm sure I have. I know you sent me a bunch of.
I'll send you a new one. I'll send you a new one
Okay,
to make it right top of
that
the
I saw
list.
any recently, but I was so crazy yesterday getting a notice up and everything. I just did the minimum and sent you the link and that kind of thing. Yeah. So if you send me the latest
Doing a
one,
lot. Yeah.
I'll put it up in the group, and then anybody here, like, you know, Judy and Winnie and Sophia and Billy, anybody else who wants to see it, will see it there, and they can take appropriate action. One thing we're pretty good at is filling up slots. We've done it for Med Rhythms, and we've done it for Centrillo, and like I said before, if we want to see change, then we need to speak up, and we need to participate in these things, because change comes from you studying stuff and publishing it, and then having other professionals look at your body of work and incorporate it into the mainstream. And it takes a long time for that to happen. So we need to be speaking up whenever we can. So thank you, and we'll end it here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Be well, everybody.
We're working on it. We are.